Welcome to Remnant 101 at the City on the Hill Church. I'm Associate Pastor Benji Lalean. God's remnant knows that faith is not challenged on tranquil seeds. I got to read from James chapter 1, verses 2 through 4. It says, "My brethren, count it all joy when you fall into various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces patience. But let patience have its perfect work, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing." You may notice that the title of this message includes a quote from my grandfather when he was talking about God challenging the faith of his people. Now, we've said over and over again that sicknesses and torments, things like that, they're of the devil. They're not of God. But do you not think that God, like he did with Job, for example, uses those things when the devil attacks to put our faith to the test? To put to work what we claim about Jesus being our healer and our Redeemer? And this is where God challenges our faith, not on the easiest of times, the tranquil seeds, like my grandfather said. He said that God may not answer right away, and it may sometimes not even seem like he's listening, but he is challenging our faith. The Christians nowadays, when dealing with sicknesses and suffering, they usually have one of two different mindsets. Either they convince themselves that it's a part of God's plan or will for them, ignoring the idea of the work of the devil and just stay suffering, or they ignore the spiritual aspects of the situation completely, which, by the way, is the whole situation. They may say to themselves things like, God put these resources in front of me, or help me find the perfect doctor, and they look for any physical remedy that they can find in a doctor or a medication. Obviously, this goes way beyond sicknesses and doctors, but that's just a really good example. Another example is hiding or running away, settling for much less when there's a big obstacle in the way, like the Israelites when they were supposed to go to the promised land. The point is, people will attribute the suffering to God's plan for them, and they will use God's name to justify man-made solutions. But what actually pleases God is when you exercise faith in these situations, because without faith, it's impossible to please God. That's what actually yields the results of victory in these situations in the long run. That means if you've got a big obstacle in your way, instead of avoiding it, speak the word of God over it and attack it. If you're sick, rebuke the works of the devil and speak healing and life over yourself. Again, like my grandfather said, God may not answer right away because he's challenging our faith. He doesn't want us to say, God didn't answer, so I guess I got to take matters into my own hands. He's looking for faith that endures. He's looking for those who count it all joy in those trials and learn the patience that the testing of faith is supposed to produce. Like we've said before, you can't build an invisible ark without faith. God needs to see great faith in us for the purpose of this great work. And again, it has to have the base of holiness and separation, like my dad always says. When the rest of the Christian world settles for suffering and man-made quick fixes, we put our faith to work. That's why it's God's remnant who understands that when God challenges our faith, those who choose to be separate can actually see how the majority of Christians, even in using God's name, aren't actually pleasing God because they aren't putting their faith to work when the devil attacks. The devil doesn't care if you use God's name. He cares about if you separate, because when you do, you can actually use your faith to put him to flight. And those are daily exercises, by the way, because the devil will try to pull you back into settling, away from building the ark. But that's why God challenges our faith, because as James said, the testing of faith produces patience. By the faith that we put to work, we are going to build this ark, however long it takes, and we're going to bring Jesus back, whatever it takes. God bless you.